Huge shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We couldn't do this show without you, so I just wanted to say thank you. And if you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
I don't care what it costs. I want to know what the truth is. And I hope that people, my son, anybody, if my name comes up, whether you like me, whether you agree with me or not, at least you could respect the fact that he's on a quest for truth. He's on a quest for truth.
Welcome to Skiba News Nation, bringing you unfiltered views, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And now, here's your host, Jeremiah Skiba, award-winning musician and son of Rob Skiba.
Hey, Skiba News Nation family, we have a very special guest today, Mr. L.A. Marzulli, who just came out with this amazing documentary, and we're going to talk more about that. So, as you said, it's all about Roswell, correct?
Yeah, I mean, both films, Roswell Revisited.
Why did you make both films on Roswell, is my question.
Well, because there's so much information on it. The first what we wanted to do in the first place was to really dig down into the testimony from the Marcel family and to show the audience what the Marcel family went through. I mean, it's for a very dark analogy would be if your last name is Oswald and your mother's Marina Oswald, you don't tell that to anybody.
Oh,
you're
yeah.
black book for life, right?
For
well,
sure.
in a similar way, the Marcel name was maligned. And if he was a patsy, which we believe at this point, 120% the guy was a patsy. He was rolled out. Ramey knew exactly what it was they were looking at. Everybody lied. And Marcel looks like, you got to be kidding me, as he's holding pictures of a weather balloon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a weather balloon. That's just all there is to it. So we interviewed Jesse Marcel Jr.'s widow, his daughter, and one of his best friends, Dr. Richard O'Connor. But then we've got other people that come on the record. Now, they're secondhand information, some of the stories, but they're real and they're there. And what this does is it corroborates. When you start putting all the evidence together, you kind of go, wait a minute, you guys are pulling a fast one on me, Shay. And that's what they did. I mean, they had it right July 8th, the Roswell Daily Paper. RAAF captures flying saucer. That's the truth. That's what happened. And they got it right. And that's what they went with. And then 24 hours later, they come up.
They covered it all up,
Yeah, nothing to see here. Keep moving. Yeah, see? I mean, it's just unbelievable. So that's why we did the film. And in the second film, we're actually in the debris field, but we're also in Hangar 84. Well, I was at a conference in Lubbock 2 weekends ago now, and obviously this didn't make it into the film, but I just did a special report on our YouTube channel. I had a witness that came forward, and his grandmother worked in Roswell for decades. And so he's driving her around, and at this point she's like, old. I don't know. She's obviously retired, maybe in her 80s, something like that. And they're driving by the infamous Hangar 84, which, by the way, we got into. That's another story. And jokingly, this is all on film, his testimony. Jokingly, he says to his grandmother, well, hey, Grandma, is this building, Hangar 84, is this where they kept the bodies? Where did they keep the bodies? Without any hesitation, she goes, right there. That's where they kept them. We didn't get to see them, but that's where they kept them.
That would give me chills.
Yeah, well, that's like real investigative reporting when you get those type of witnesses that come forward what is it, 76 years, 77 years later, we're getting stories like this. We were in, and in the film, in the debris field, there's a segment where you see me walk over to the fence. So we're outside the fence area of Hangar 84. There's a guy smoking a cigarette by the fence. And so I go over. I mean, I've learned that, you got to press the envelope sometimes. You just have to. So I go up to him. I go, look, we're a small little film crew outside of California, and we would love to come in and film inside the hangar. Can we do that? The guy goes, yeah, well, why don't you come up to the front of the building and I'll get the head guy on the phone for you and you can talk to him. So we go running up to the building, and now we're in the ante room, and it's all on film. And I'm talking to the head guy on a cell phone. Guy hands me the cell phone. And I go, yeah, we're just a small film crew. We'd love to get in. We can more than happy to make a contribution. Oh, that's not necessary, blah, blah, blah. So the guy shows up about 20 minutes later, ushers us back into a conference room. All this is on film. We record him. I'm asking him questions about what happened here. Next thing you know, I go, can you take us into the hangar? He goes, yeah, sure, come on. So we follow him into the iconic interior of Hangar 84. And Jeremiah and Jake, it looks exactly like it did in 1947.
Wow.
Except there's a huge, modern jet that's being decommissioned inside that. It looks exactly the same. And
Wow.
then we've got the written testimony, the affidavit from Walter G. Haught, who basically said it wasn't opened until the time of his death, and then it was opened up and made public. You can go online and look at that. And, his testimony is incredible because he basically states that he was in Hangar 84. He saw the disc. He saw the bodies. They were under a tarp. We also know from Bull, who's the manager, the head guy at Hangar 84, that they probably stored the bodies in the back room. And he took us into the back room. The autopsy wasn't done there, but the back room. Then we have another witness whose father was a fireman who was called out to the wreckage, and he brought wreckage home with him. And
Is that what's in the museum in Roswell? Those pieces? No, they're different pieces.
Well, all that, anything original was long since,
Been gone.
Bye-bye. See you later. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All those are just, replicas of what they may have looked like, but they're certainly not the original pieces. And, it's real investigative reporting, and you start connecting the dots. And then, of course, we go out on the debris field, and what we find there on camera while we're digging is mind-boggling.
Wow. That's really cool that you were able to get in it. And what do you mean by when you went in there, it looked just like back then? Like were there all the furniture was similar, or it just smelled like musty, or what do you mean by that?
It was the original hangar. There had been minor repairs done on it, but it was the original hangar. The steel structure, the can, everything was the same as it was in 1947. There's a clip, and it's just I can't believe we didn't get it on film. I walked right to Gil, and he was having trouble with his camera. Gil Zimmerman's my business partner. So he was filming this thing inside the hangar, and I went over to the huge doors, and acted like I was coming through the door and walked up to the camera. Well, he didn't get that. We should have shot it over again, but we were all just, wow, look where we are.
Yeah.
And it's, that's where they store the stuff, in my opinion. There's too many witnesses. After a while, all the people who jump up and down and say, there's nothing to see here, keep moving. It was a weather balloon. It was a very exotic Nazi probe or Nazi ship. Show me the evidence.
Yep.
Talk to the witnesses. It's see, the difference between real investigative reporting and those who don't enter into that is that, you gotta get out of a library. Seen from Raiders of the Lost Ark, but you just got to get out of the library. The library serves its purpose. It's great. That's where the data is stored, and you're reading other people's opinion, other people's adventure of what they did. But after you read that, then you got to make your own adventure, and that's what we do in this film. We go to Hangar 84. We go to the debris field. We interview Dr. Jesse Marcel Jr., Marcel's widow, his daughter, one of his best friends, Dr. Richard O'Connor. So you got to do that. That picks up the story. And then, of course, we did due diligence like we show a telegram with David Rudiak. So Gemma Ramey is doing the press conference, and there's just weather balloons in front of him, and the cameras are rolling, and Ramey's going, nothing to see here, it's just a weather balloon, keep moving, right? The whole deal. But in Ramey's hand, he's got a telegram. And the telegram is kind of like this. Let's see if I can kind of make it so it kind of like this. There we go. Oh, hold on.
Kind of open.
Something like that. All right. So David Rudiak is a computer guy. Yeah, here you go. So it's like Ramey's like laying, so the the telegram's like partially open.
Yeah.
And so you can read it. But you can't read it because it's 1947 and the camera is 20 feet back from where Ramey is. But David Rudiak was able to, through the use of computers, go in and zoom in. So there are very clear words that are in that telegram. Disk, retrieve bodies. The wreckage is shipped to Wright Pat. I mean, and then I was at a conference at Pepperdine University probably 15 years ago. They had some guy up there from NASA, whatever, telling us that the disk at the telegram was telling, because all this broke right around that time with Rudiak. So they already had a cover story. Well, the discs that they're talking about are these secret microphones that they attach to the weather balloon. Oh, really? So that's why they talk about disk being retrieved, and the disk is being flown to Wright Pat, which is then just called Wright Field. I mean, it's deliberate obfuscation constantly.
Yeah.
That's what it is. But when you get all these people that were around the actual event, and you start putting the pieces together, it's not a weather balloon. Marcel Sr. was the 509th Bombardier Group, whatever you want to call it, which at that time was the only nuclear-capable bombing group on the planet. Mm-hmm. He was their intelligence officer. To think for a moment that Jesse Marcel Sr. would mistake a weather balloon, no matter how exotic, for material from a crashed disc is just patently absurd. Plus, he brought the material back and showed his wife and showed his son, Jesse Marcel Jr. So I interviewed Jesse Marcel Jr. before he passed away. And we reenact that in the film. Again, this is like, you can read all about Jesse Marcel Jr., but you got to go while he's alive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what we did.
That's awesome. Well, you named it Roswell Revisited, Exoneration. Why did who's being exonerated?
The Marcel name is being exonerated.
Very cool.
I mean, without doubt, the Marcel name is being exonerated because, for years they were looked at, well, he was just looking for attention. Well, maybe he was drunk. Maybe he was on peyote. I mean, it just, But then you go to the family, which is what we did. I think we're the only film that's ever really zoned in on the family side of the story. Not only Jesse Marcel Sr.'s, but his son, his widow. I mean, this whole thing. I mean, we did a deep dive. We flew up to Montana.
Yeah.
And look, Marcel, both of these guys, there's a clip that we use in the film showing Jesse Marcel Sr., and they brought him back to the debris field decades later. He's an old man by this time, an old man. And he looks right at the camera and he says, they wanted me to talk in the microphone. And he goes, but that isn't what I do. That isn't what I did. I wasn't good at that. I wasn't trained for that. I didn't know how to do that. So Ramey took over, and Ramey said, there's nothing to see, just a common weather balloon. Forget about it. Then Marcel Sr. looks right at the camera and says this, but we both knew different. We both knew differently. He said, and we hold it right there and just stop it. We both knew differently. And that's the truth. And this is the reason why. Because in Walter G. Haught's deathbed confession, essentially, his affidavit to be read at the time of his demise, basically stated that right after they gathered the material, they sat in an office at the 509th Bombing Group. General Ramey was there. Lieutenant Colonel Haught was there. Jesse Marcel Sr. was there. And other officials were there. And they were at a table, and they were passing around the material. And no one had ever seen any material like it. So it's, here's the deal. When you go out and you start talking to different people, witnesses who were there, who knew about it, first-hand information, second-hand information,
Yep.
and you start putting the pieces together, it completely contradicts the official narrative. And so the government has completely, in my opinion, covered this thing up for decades. For decades. There's a clip that we show in the film. Is it real? Don't know. If it's not real and it's staged, my business partner Gil Zimmerman talks about this. There's a lot of people there. This isn't a cheap little, 5-minute deal with a couple of props. There's at least 20 people that you see on camera. There are military uniforms. It's all from the 40s. It looks very real. And they're carrying what looks to be an alien on a stretcher, a gray.
Wow.
And they let the thing down. We show it in the film. And, people go, well, that's the typical Hollywood deal where the camera's jiggling and, people are getting in front of the camera so you can't really see the entity. But we show what the entity looks like. In the chest area, something's blown out. The chest area is like, there's a wound there. I mean, you can see it. And granted, if this is real, and I believe it is, and so does my business partner, Gil Zimmerman, who, by the way, worked at Disney and, what's it called? Disney and, I can't believe DreamWorks, thanks, Beck. And DreamWorks for 30 years, bouncing back and forth. And, Gil and I went over that footage numerous times. And Gil just looked at me and said, man, if that's fake, if somebody recreated that, you're looking at a pretty hefty budget to do something like that. And I get it. This isn't just, some guy out there. And critics will go, see, the camera's jerky and blah, 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 blah. Well, if you're there and
scared,
and the scene is chaotic, that's exactly what it's going to look like. That's exactly what it looks like. The scene is chaotic. People are running around. There's this gray alien, which is being, carried in. It's set down. People are looking at this thing. The cameraman ducks like this and gets behind somebody so he's got a clearer view of it. And we do it in slow-mo so you can really see what the body looks like. In my opinion, this was, and I'm quoting David Flynn, the late David Flynn here, this may have been a deliberate crash. And I remember talking to David years and years ago. I said, David, why would they do this? Unless the beings are avatars. And that's what I believe the Greys are. I believe the Greys are biological suits that house the demons. Demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. Okay, let's start from the beginning. The Nephilim are the offspring of fallen angels and human women coming together, mingling of the seed, Genesis 3:15. The seed, there it is, your dad's legacy. But the seed, Genesis 3:15, and Dr. I.D.E. Thomas and Gary Stearman have talked about that till the cows come home. So you have the mingling of the sea creating a hybrid known as the Nephilim. Giants, 6 fingers, red hairs. Before the flood. The flood happens, these Nephilim are destroyed. They become the disembodied spirits, which are earthbound. How do we know that? The Book of Enoch. So we either go with that or we speculate. And, we don't know. It's not like we can sit down with the other side and really ask pertinent questions. You can't do that. We just, you can't sit down with Beelzebub and go, well, during the flood, what happened to the Nephilim? It's not going to happen. And frankly, I don't want it to happen. I don't want to meet Beelzebub face to face, okay? But you get my point. So the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim are demons which wander the earth. A demon has to inhabit something in order to manifest. When Jesus cast out the demons from the man of the tomb, these are not fallen angels. They're not, in my opinion. They are the demonic entities which are earthbound, and they have to inhabit a human being or an animal or whatever. And this is what I think. So the dragon, Satan, knows all this, and he creates these biological suits. He creates avatars, and the demons can inhabit them. Now, I got there from Whitley Strieber's book, Communion. Strieber's got no Nephilim dog in the hunt at all. But Strieber talks about opening up a drawer on one of the ships and seeing the bodies of the Greys stacked up like this. Another experiencer, Dolly, wrote, and she's an experiencer. She's been taken since she was a child. And she writes that the Greys are stacked up like chairs. There it is again. So I've got 2 sources. I also have Karen Wilkinson. We published her book, Stolen Seed Evil Harvest, that basically states the same thing. The Greys seem to be avatars, automaton-like.
So they can just hop into anybody that they want. When one is ruined, they just get another one.
They just go to another one.
That's crazy.
And I remember talking to David Flynn. David, what do you think? Do you think that the Roswell deal was deliberate? And David believed it was a deliberate crash. That's what he wrote about that. Tom Horn published a book.
Wow.
I talked to David. I never met him face to face, but we talked, I don't know, half a dozen times on the phone. And I called him up, and I was very distraught because I had gotten to this place where, are you trying to tell me that the Greys are avatars or biological suits? And at that time, I didn't have names for those. I just said, are they suits? Do the demons hop into them? And Flynn said, yeah, I got there too. And it was very disturbing to me, but that's what I think they are. Now, David's not around. I wish he was, to weigh in on it. But that's what I think the Greys are. Chase Klotsky, we show this in the film. Chase Klotsky came on the record with the late Richard Shaw and myself while we were in Peru. And she's talking about her encounter. She's in a field, and this huge UFO comes over the field. And instantly, there's like 5 or 7 investigators in the field. They all turn at the same time and begin to run out of the field. That's hive mentality. Hive mentality. And she left all of her equipment in this cornfield. They're running. The lead guy's got a flashlight. All of a sudden, he turns the flashlight, and there, like 6 feet from her, 6 feet from Chase Klotsky, is a Grey, is what we call the Greys. Wow. And it's staring at her. There was eye contact. The eyes are big and black. The legs are very small. The body is very frail. She's terrified. She says right on the record, the fear, she goes, the fear presses in on you. And I've heard this numerous times from abductees, from people that have had close encounters. The fear level is through the roof. And the fear is visceral. It presses in on a person. And that's what Chase Klotsky talks about. So, I always, not always, but my counter argument to the New Agers, whatever, that are trying to tell us that these are benevolent beings, well, why is everybody always terrified? Why do they abduct 5 or 6 year old kids in the middle of the night and implant them?
Yeah.
And I'll ask the audience. I'll go, how many of you think it's okay to abduct a child and then implant them? Anybody in the audience raise their hand? Never a hand goes up. So, if they're so benevolent, then why not give us the cure to cancer? There was a woman that I interviewed recently, and she's not here to defend herself, and I'm not going to disparage her, but she calls herself a hybrid being. And so I got into it with her on one of my interviews, and I said, look, the biblical prophetic narrative tells us exactly what's going to happen a priori, in advance. What do your people, what do they bring to the table that I can hang my hat on? Just give me one thing. Just give me one thing that I can hang my hat on. And she got very uncomfortable. And basically that was the end of that part of the interview. She said, well, something to the effect that LA, you're too deep into these old parchments and these old stories which you have on earth, but you need to let go of those so you can be enlightened like she was. And I just let it go. I mean, God bless her. But, I don't need to be the only, and I told her, I said, this is the only book on the planet, that has events called out with great specificity a priori. So if these entities which you are supposedly an ambassador of are so benevolent, show me one thing. Show me one thing that they're calling out before it happens. You can't. And she couldn't. She got very uncomfortable, and I'm a nice guy. We didn't try to disparage her, but the bottom line is you want me to believe in this whole deal that you're saying is real and true, but you can't show me one piece of evidence. You can't show me anything prophetic. And prophecy, the reason why the Bible is so amazing and the biblical prophetic narrative is so amazing, because it's the only book on the planet that calls out with great specificity, great detail, what's going to happen a priori in advance of when it happens. I'll give you one example. And you can tap dance around this till the cows come home. And this is very offensive to the Jews. They won't even look at it. They won't even look at it. In the book of Daniel, it talks about from when the decree is written to go and rebuild the walls in Jerusalem. And that decree is on a stele in the London Museum. So when the decree when the decree goes forth to rebuild the temple until Shiloh comes, Messiah comes, there'll be 440 years. What is it? 7 times 70? 490 years. 490 years. Well, and I want to thank Dr. Chuck Missler, and I heard it from Chuck first, but he also got it from I'm trying to remember his name, Sir Robert, I can't think of his name, but Chuck got it from this other gentleman, this English gentleman. And when you look at the date of the stele, and you fast forward 490 years, the event that happens is when Jesus arranges the triumphal entry. I mean, he arranges it. He talks to his disciples. Yeah, go into the city. You're going to find a Lexus there by the 7-Eleven with the keys still in it. And, take the car. And when you get in the car, the owner's going to come rushing out and going, hey, what are you guys doing? Oh, the master has need of it. Really? Well, I'm using the Lexus analogy to show us that in the ancient world, this is absurd. He tells 2 of his disciples, go and you go into the city, you'll find a colt that's never been ridden. When you go and get the colt, the master or the owner of the colt will come out and go, what are you guys doing? And you'll say, the master has need of it. I mean, seriously? Do you know how wacky that is? You realize that it's like this guy going down to the 7-Eleven. Yeah, the master needs the Lexus. Oh, okay, go ahead and take it. And that's exactly what it's like. Because a cult like that is the Lexus of the ancient world. They are. And so Jesus arranges for the triumphal entry. He's fulfilling prophecy literally to the second. He comes riding into Jerusalem as a king. And then he says, perhaps some of the most chilling words in the Bible: Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I would have gathered you as a hen gathers her chicks, but you did not know the day. Oh, I got chills. You did not know the day of your visitation. He holds them accountable to understand and know the words of Daniel. He holds them accountable. The nation collectively accountable. It's right there, guys. It's right there in black and white. They had the scroll. All they had to do was open it up and read what was in the book of Daniel. 490 years. And all they have to do is count from when the decree goes out to rebuild the temple. No problem there. Somebody's got to keep track of this. Yeah, we're in the year 488. And maybe next year it'll be 489. We got one more year. And then we got to be looking out for the Messiah. He's out there somewhere. Nobody does that. But Jesus arranges it, and that's where the crowd throws down with the palm. We celebrate it as Palm Sunday, but it's lost from us. How many pastors know that what he's doing is fulfilling prophecy? So we hear all about the palms and the robes and the this and the that, but people don't understand the prophetic significance. He's fulfilling that ancient prophecy to the second, to the letter. Right there. Here he is. And if it's not him, then who is it? You know, I mean, is it, Bruce Almighty that rode in over there? We just didn't see it? Nonsense. It's Yeshua. It's Jesus and him alone. That's who it is. And that fulfills the ancient prophetic text, which in itself, when you really think about it, I mean, that's mind-boggling. So when you show that to someone like this woman who doesn't understand what prophecy is, or you show it to a skeptic or a non-believer, I remember telling an atheist friend of mine, well, they just arranged that. They knew about it, so they just arranged it. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, really? How does that work? How does that work? Nobody knew about it. Jesus knew about it. I don't think the disciples knew about it. And then what does he say? Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I would have gathered you as a hen gathers her chicks, but you did not know the day of your visitation. So it's there. And when we look at those scriptures, those passages of the Bible, and then we turn to where we are now in modernity, and we realize that the Middle East we're so far away from Roswell, but that's okay. We'll circle back. The Middle East is imploding. Recently, there was a picture which I showed at the conference I just did at Lubbock, and I'll be speaking at the Prophecy Watchers Conference down in Orlando at the end of the month. And so this picture is amazing because on the platform, on the stage, is Vladimir Putin, Khomeini from Iran, and Erdogan from Turkey. Well, Khomeini, thank you very much. So Khomeini, who's a Shia Muslim, is in direct odds with Erdogan, who's a Sunni. They hate each other, yet there they are on the same stage. Those three nations that I just gave you, Russia, Gog, Magog, Iran, Persia, and Turkey, those are the three nations listed in Ezekiel 38 and 39.
Wow.
And for the first time in modernity that I'm aware of, they're all talking to each other. And what was it, a month ago? Russia and Libya?
Mm-hmm.
That's Putin. That's another connection, another one of the nations that we see in the Ezekiel 38, 39 prophecy. So am I saying that we're looking at Ezekiel 38, 39? I can't say that yet. It would be like me trying to prognosticate the winner of a football game at halftime when the score is tied and both teams are evenly matched.
Well,
you can't do that.
If Taylor Swift is dating one of the guys, they're probably going to win. I don't know if you know about that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you think? Yeah. I mean, Taylor, don't get me going on the Taylor Swift stuff. That is one of the biggest distractions on the planet.
I know, and that's what they want.
This is a mediocre talent, who's been foisted to the top of the pyramid. All hail Taylor Swift. She's a billionaire. I could care less. I challenged the audience in Lubbock 2 weeks ago. I said, "Can anybody hum me a Taylor Swift song?" And then I kind of goofed on it. Okay, let's look at Frank Sinatra. Those little town blues, da 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 da, are bringing me down, da 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 da. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York. I can sing that, or I can sing the Beatles for my generation. I want to hold your hand, and go on and on and on.
Same
Right?
with Elvis. Like he's
Yeah, or
my
Elvis.
thing.
Right.
I mean, and
I'm
I'm
in love.
29.
I'm all shook up.
Oh,
Uh-huh. Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, what I'm trying to make is we just did three from different times, different eras, different genres. Name me a Taylor Swift song. Hum me one. Somebody just educate me. I need Taylor in my life. It's just not there.
no,
I'm not trying to disparage Taylor Swift, but I mean, come on, guys. I
it's
mean, you
nothing
hold Taylor.
authentic. We need something
Huh?
authentic from Taylor. Give us something authentic, something that we can
Something,
hum.
please.
Well, you see it with the modern evolution of different pop stars is you start them off with very innocent albums. I think her first couple big hits were all about romance and getting married and whenever you look at the evolution of how the culture transitions them from these innocent pop stars like Miley Cyrus and
Hannah
Taylor
Montana.
Swift,
Mhm.
Hannah Montana, they go and transition into these, stage, devil humping horror type figures, for our
Exactly.
culture,
Exactly what they
everybody
are.
to look up to, right?
Yeah, I mean,
It's-
when you look at Willow, Taylor Swift's Willow, it's 100% witchy, 100%. There's not even trying to hide it. They're all in dark robes. They're in a circle. It's a ritual. When we go back to the Grammys a few years ago, there was a satanic ritual performed on stage. I mean, there was. I'm not making this stuff up. It'd
Yeah.
be very interesting to see what they do on Sunday. And look, I'm not a big football guy. I mean, I don't even know who's playing. I mean, I really
I
don't.
don't either.
I don't follow any sports at all. It's just I'm too immersed in what's going on. And sports are great. I mean, I'm not knocking sports. I watched part of a basketball game. My wife and I were at a sushi party the other night. So I'm looking at the big screen, and I'm watching these guys do 3-pointers from like way outside, and they're just dunking the ball. I mean, the ball is just like swishing it, like right. I'm going, how can these guys do this? And then I reminded my wife the last time I had a basketball in my hand at a friend's house, I missed the basket entirely and blew out the plate glass window. It's just like, that was a $300 free fall, free throw. It's just the point I'm trying to make is that we'll see what they do at the Super Bowl. There's all these rumors swirling around. Something's going to happen there. It's going to be some kind of an event. Blah blah blah. I just, it's anybody can write anything on the internet. Santa Claus is going to make a guest appearance at the Super Bowl.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Oh.
Super Bowl aside, what do you think about this year having the total solar eclipse and how that eclipse is going to cross over multiple cities named Nineveh and following the one that happened in 2017? What are your thoughts on those peculiar signs in the sky, you could say?
I am looking very closely at that because you're right. There's a whole list of cities which are biblical. Are we looking at something that's very deliberate? And I don't know. The thing we can't do is hang our hats on anything. So we know what the biblical prophetic narrative states, and we watch and we wait. The place to watch and wait is Israel, in my opinion. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They're not going to go. This isn't going to go away. It's already day 126 or 127, I forget, but right around in that time frame. So after they do Hamas and completely get victory in Gaza, we're not going to stop. There's not going to be a ceasefire. That's just complete nonsense. There will never be a ceasefire. It's not going to happen. They will utterly destroy, and they need to. these people are barbarians. So all we hear about, oh, the genocide's happening in Gaza. Wah, 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 wah. What about the 1,200 people who were mercilessly slaughtered on October 7th? We never hear about that. We only hear about, oh, we're just getting all this genocide in Gaza. Really? That's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing a lot of Hamas tunnels, millions, billions of dollars of infrastructure, money that were given to the people of Gaza, which never reached the people of Gaza. So, this is an Iran-backed proxy. They are all over this thing, and in order for them to really stop it, they've got to completely eradicate Hamas. End of story. There's no negotiation here. It's over. The time to negotiate was before October 7th. You guys committed genocide. But we don't hear the other side ever say that. Well, it really wasn't genocide, LA, the Palestinian people, blah, 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 blah. No, the vitriol and the hatred, no matter what you do, these people are trained from the time they're little kids to adulthood to hate Israel, to hate the Jews. And we saw all the vitriol come out against Israel, all the anti-Semitism just immediately floated to the surface. It was just unbelievable to watch happen.
Yep.
So they're going to do a cut and paste, in my opinion. The moment Gaza is secure, really secure, and the tunnels are blown up, and there's no chance of a resurgence. And see, that's what they've discovered. They'll secure a place in Gaza, and they'll move away from that. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, it's refortified, and the terrorists are living there and carrying out attacks. So what they've learned is no. We've got to wipe these guys out completely. Once they do that, they will go to the north. And Lebanon, the Hezbollah has been firing missiles from day one into Israel. I mean, almost daily. So this isn't going to go away. And then you've got upwards of 150,000, 200,000 people that lived on the northern border. They're all in central Israel living in hotels. So you can't say, oh, it's okay. You can go back to Kiryat Shimona. Don't worry about it. No, almost daily there's rocket fire into Kiryat Shimona. And usually Israel strikes back with planes and all this other stuff. Then you've got the prophecy of Damascus 17, or I'm sorry, Isaiah 17, which is the destruction of Damascus. And we know that Israel hit very hard the airport in and around Damascus. We know that the United States flew 85 Soris, but they were mostly in Iraq, some in Jordan, in response to Iran's killing, 3 to 5 American soldiers. So Damascus has never been a ruinous heap, and I think that's what we're looking at. This thing's going to, if it really goes there, the players to watch are Russia, Turkey, and Iran, because those are the three players that we see. And if they get involved with others, then we are looking at, Ezekiel 38, 39. And circling back to your point about the comet, could it be that the church goes up this year? And we don't know. We don't know that. That's conjecture, which is why we hold on to everything loosely. But there's a convergence of events that seem to be happening that really makes me wonder where we are.
Hey, I think what you mentioned, tying into your background with archaeology and, and finding these treasures from the past, you mentioned the tunnels that Hamas had been digging to get to Israel. And part of me wonders if there haven't been some massive, archaeological treasures that they've unearthed through the process of digging through the Holy Land, right? They're deep underground. They're below the, I would be curious at what level of the substrate that they were digging these tunnels at, where they deposited all of the excess soil and refuse. Because, if there are some mountains out there somewhere of all of this underground, treasure, pretty much, I mean, there's bound to be some amazing stuff with whatever they removed from those tunnels. And I'd be very curious to find out, where did that soil go? Did anything was anything uncovered in the past few years? I guess you would have to have a representative from the Hamas dig team, but that would really pique my interest. What might have been uncovered.
And I agree with you. Recently, last year, the archaeologists, I forget the gentleman's name, Israeli archaeologists, they uncovered Joshua's altar, which was actually on our on the Trail of a Nephilim tour. That was one of the sites we were going to go to, Joshua's altar. You say, well, why is that? Well, it's on Mount Ebal, and the Mount Ebal is at the gateway to the Promised Land. So Joshua's altar is thousands of years old. The altar was shut down, closed. So they uncovered the altar. They took all the spoils from the dig, and they deposited all that dirt in an area. Well, this years went by, and last year an archaeologist said, why don't we go and wet sift the soil to see what's there? So they did that. And wet sifting is you put the dirt in the sifter like this, and you shake it, but there's water in it, and that helps move things and show things. And so they wet sifted it, and they found a lead tablet, and they knew it was something that had been deliberately buried on that altar site, and they were able to translate it. And it's got the oldest name of Yahweh in Proto-Canaanite script.
Wow.
So this is old. This is Yahweh. And it says, this is what it says: cursed, cursed, cursed. You will die cursed. Cursed of Yahweh. Cursed, cursed, cursed. I actually said it wrong. Cursed, cursed, cursed. Cursed of Yahweh. You will die cursed. Cursed, cursed, cursed. Mount Ebal is the gateway to the Promised Land. Who's in the Promised Land when Joshua and Caleb are pressing the conquest? The Nephilim. Now, some people say that tablet is there. It is for Israel to obey the law. I'm not buying that for a New York minute. Not buying it at all. They may be right, but in my opinion, based on where Joshua's altar is, the severity of this cursed tablet, this is to the inhabitants of the land, the Nephilim tribes. Curse, 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 cursed of Yahweh. You will die cursed, 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 cursed. I mean, give me a break. There's no wiggle room there. And there's not a shred of grace and mercy. And in my opinion, this tablet was, and remember, Joshua creates the altar after the conquest of Ai. And Ai, isn't that interesting? Not the AI that we have today, but Ai, the city Ai. And that was a Nephilim stronghold. So I believe, and I talked to the archaeologist, we did a Zoom chat with him along with other people, and I just said, is it possible, instead of this blessing and curses that we see, is it possible that this severity and this very dramatic curse is actually to the inhabitants of the land, i.e. the Nephilim? And I hold to that opinion.
What are your thoughts on the Ark of the Covenant? I mean, I know there's some scriptures that hint at a prophetic recovery.
That's crazy. I was
the
going
Ark
to
of the
ask
Covenant.
But
What are your thoughts on the many different? I know there's the Ron Wyatt account. There's some who believe the Ethiopians have it. Some who push that it is contained at Mecca. What are your thoughts regarding that topic? I mean, we have the Copper Scroll Project. That would be a massive find once that's unveiled.
Oh yeah, it's the Holy
in
Grail.
relation to a third temple, and it would split the world too. I mean, considering if that was found, it would validate the Israeli claim to the land, I guess you could say. They could use it as archaeological proof that the two-nation-state solution, has to go about, and all these people who are pushing the Palestinian versus the Israeli agendas, that it would really be a very divisive thing. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the Ark, depending on who you talk to, some people believe that the Ark was already found underneath the Temple Mount in a hidden room. I actually wrote about that in my very first book, published in 1999, Nephilim, The Truth is Here. And there was a secret room, allegedly, that was uncovered. And they went to get the head rabbis, and when they had come back, the Muslims had already constructed a wall in front of that. Is that true? It's a very colorful story. Is there a way to vet that? Absolutely not. Jeremiah supposedly hid the ark. I do not believe it is in Ethiopia. I don't think it was. I think a replica was there, definitely, but not the real ark. It's not there. As far as Ron Wyatt and the place of a skull, he believed that the crucifixion happened at the place of a skull. Golgotha, Goliath of Gath. That's what people think. So the cross is here, and the blood's coming down on the cross, and through a fissure, it goes to the place of a skull, Nephilim, and that's Genesis 3:15, and it goes on the mercy seat of the ark. If that's true, that would be a cosmic, a cushion shot, as my late mentor, Dr. Wayne Kendall, used to say. I mean, that would just be unbelievable. I'm not sure where it is. I know my former business partner and good friend, the late Richard Shaw, we did 11 films together, the whole Watchers series. And, Rick used to think, Rick was down in the tunnels. He had carte blanche with the rabbis in Israel. I mean, I don't even know how he got there, but he did. He could go anywhere he wanted. I mean, he had carte blanche, and they took him down into this tunnel that just went on for miles, and then there was a wall there, and so the whole project, the project he was trying to fund was Project X-Ray, and then he passed away. I was never interested in that. I'm on the trail of the Nephilim, not the Ark of the Covenant. I think the Ark of the Covenant is way too. It can get you killed.
And there are too many people looking for it. I mean, I feel like everybody's looking for the Ark of the Covenant when, maybe it's like a Taylor Swift type thing where they're like, look over here while this, is just sitting right here. Who knows,
I think it'll resurface. I really do. I think it'll resurface at some point. Yeah, be very interesting.
Very cool. So can I ask you a couple fan submitted questions?
Sure.
They want me to ask you. So can copper kill giants?
No.
Okay. Is there? How's that happening? Did you?
Because I'm on my computer, and when I do that, there's some sort of a prompt. So I either get balloons or fireworks.
I thought it was our producer. Okay, another one is there
Bubbles.
any is there any folklore, myths, legends talking about copper stopping them? You said no about copper. Okay, and then
I mean, the copper thing was foisted up on the flagpole by a well-known researcher, but there's no evidence of that, in my opinion. I mean, there's just no evidence of it. So I understand the story, and I'm not going to disparage the person who came up with that, but there's nothing scientific that I could go to and go, well, the Afghan giant we killed with a copper bullet. They just fired bullets. They basically decapitated the thing, and then he collapsed on the ground. So there were no copper bullets being fired at this guy. They just basically decapitated him. Guys, that, without disparaging the author of that particular mythos, that's a strong possibility. But I don't know his source, and what proof do we have that actually works?
That's
I
true.
mean, is there anything? Am I missing something from antiquity that talks about this? I don't know. Maybe I am. Give the guy the benefit of the doubt, but I mean, you got to give me something other than hearsay.
Right. What about missing 411? I've always found that fascinating, and their tales of Bigfoot, their tales of aliens, their whole like I just want to know your thoughts about it because I wanted to ask you that last time, but I didn't get the chance. So, what do you think about that documentary and that whole subject?
I actually interviewed with David Paulides
Oh,
fairly
really?
recently. Yeah,
Awesome.
last summer.
That's cool.
And more about that. I'm not allowed to talk about it, but more about that in the near future. The bottom line is, I've said this, the late Scott Carpenter and I, Scott was on my show several times. He got too close, in my opinion. He got way too close. And I think they took him out. Sasquatch are modern day Nephilim. They are interdimensional entities. They can pop in and they can pop out. They are modern day Nephilim.
And
They
that's
are
why you
huge.
can't find them. That's why you can't find the bodies of a Bigfoot.
Exactly.
That makes sense. That makes so much
Yeah.
sense.
And of course, they're always seen, not always, but they tag team with UFOs. Gee, what a coinkydink, right?
Yep.
It's the same guys pulling the strings on either, look, I've been immersed in this for decades. I mean, for decades. In some ways, I wonder why I'm still alive. I really do. It's just, but the Lord has kept me. He's the one that surrounds me. He's look to the Lord in his strength, seek his face always. For the Lord is faithful. He will strengthen you and protect you from the evil one. Behold, I have given you authority over snakes and scorpions and all power of the enemy. Nothing shall harm you. Those are scriptures that I say daily over myself and over my family because, I realize I don't want to boast or sound like I'm boasting, but in some ways, what we do is the tip of the spear. There's no doubt about it. Like with the Roswell films, we have right now we have 8 films that are available in our UFO series. Well, the last 2 will be available probably by the end of March. They're done, but we're not going to release them because we just released the Roswell film. We're sitting on something. There's 30 films that I've been involved in, produced, directed, co-produced. I've hosted all 30 of them. So, I've been doing this for a while. There's a body of work there that is, it boggles my mind. When I look at 30 films, it's like, you got to be kidding me. There's 13 and a half books that were written, and the half of one is almost done. That's why I say 13 and a half. That'll be coming out this year. I've already written 10 chapters. So I've got about another 6, 7 to go. And, I'm going downhill now. So this is I'm coasting. And we're going to try to get this book out. So all that to say that, what we're looking at is unprecedented times. And Sasquatch, you go back to the Gimli-Patterson film. Oh, well, that's just a fake film, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so let me get this straight. They were making female gorilla suits because in the Gimli-Patterson film, it's obviously a female. The thing has breasts. They're right there. You can see them. There's breasts. And the female turns and looks, and that's where you get the shot of the breast. So, it's a female. So they had, female gorilla suits. I'm not buying that for a minute.
That's a good point. Yeah, are there?
I don't know. I don't think so, especially when, 1960 something?
Yeah.
That's one sighting. Now you've got thousands of sightings, thousands of them. And they pop in and they pop out. I said this at a Property Watchers conference a while back. And I get it. When I say stuff like this, a lot of people, there's something called cognitive dissonance. If there's nothing in your grid system, then a person has trouble even understanding what you're talking about. We know from the book of Revelation that at some point, the beasts of the earth are unleashed on the people of the world. The late Russ Dizdar, my battle buddy and good friend, used to say that the therion, the beasts of the earth, therion in the Greek, these are not giraffes and hamsters. They're not hamsters and giraffes. So what are they? What are we looking at? What's multiplying in ways that we've never seen? Sasquatch. Sasquatch has a conical head, like the skull, the cinnamon skull, which is on your desk. I have the same one in my office. Thank you, Joe Taylor, for the great modeling job that you did for all of us. And he passed away last year. So, it's, when you look at things guys, Rob Skiba's no longer here.
I think he was
Richard Shaw,
targeted.
right?
Hmm.
Russ Dizdar no longer here. I mean, Chuck Missler is no longer here. I mean, the list is it's very sobering, extremely sobering. And all these people were great researchers that I just named. Tom Horn is no longer here. Michael Heiser is no longer here. Chuck Missler, I've already said Chuck's name, but I mean, Chuck was a legend. I mean, I cut my teeth on Chuck Missler. So it's very sobering when you start looking at how many people on our side are missing, are gone. It's and Jeremiah, your dad. I mean, that was, I didn't even want to go there on here, but I mean that never. I'll just say this: that never should have happened. Just like Russ Dizdar, that never should have happened.
Yeah,
never.
it's a targeting thing, in my opinion, and we
I
have
agree.
like all the evidence for it, but no lawyer will touch it. But that's a different subject. But I feel like it's important to have people like you that are still here to tell our younger audience, like make them aware of what's happening, because there, like you said, there are not many of them left.
Yeah, our numbers are dwindling that actually talk about this.
Well, how can they find
Which-
you?
Well, we just bought lamarzulli.com. I mean, these weasels who
Oh,
steal
yeah.
your identity, and then you got to pay them to get it. So this one particular weasel has had it for 15 years, over 15 years, more like 20. He's had it, and we finally negotiated it, and we bought it back from him. But right now it's lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net. Our streaming site, you can stream all the films, 30 films there. The Roswell films, On the Trail of the Nephilim films. I mean, your head will be blown away. All the UFO films, they're all there. Streaming.lamarzulli.net, streaming.lamarzulli.net. And, I would encourage your listeners, spend $4 or $5. I mean, people go out and buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks and don't even think about it.
Yeah.
For the price of a cup of coffee at Starbucks, you can educate yourself in a deep dive that what we've been talking about here, because we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah, and we'll definitely post the links in the description of this
Thanks,
interview.
guys. Appreciate it.
And like if there's anything we can do to help you share and get those links out. You said your numbers are dwindling. Well, let's keep them coming back up, you know what I mean?
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Oh, our producer does have one question for you, though. Can he ask
Okay,
it?
go ahead. Sure.
If you went to sleep in the 60s and woke up today, what would surprise you the most?
And Opa, how old are you? Just so he knows.
75.
Okay, so I'm 73. So we're and I was at Woodstock too. So there you go. That's a really good question. I think in 2017, Commander David Fravor appeared on Tucker Carlson's show, and that began the soft disclosure that we're seeing now. I never thought we would see that. That surprises me on some level, but perhaps even greater than that is the way society is completely turned on itself. You look at the whole transgender deal, which is just being shoved down everybody's throat. Get your kids out of the public school system. I mean, you just got to. When we look at the rise of lawlessness that we see throughout the land, I mean, I was on the freeway today. I went skiing today. I'm on the freeway, and I mean, these guys are like, they're going in and out of traffic like this. I mean, and we're talking 70, 80 miles an hour with 5 feet of room, zicking in front of cars, zagging in front of that car. I mean, it's lawlessness. It's crazy. People flip you off for anything, There's no courtesy anymore. If they think you're getting ahead of them, they won't let you in on the freeways. And so the rise of lawlessness, raging insanity. Timothy, talks about this. In the last days, perilous times will come. Men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, blasphemous, disobedient to parents, unforgiving, unholy, unloving, unthankful, slanderers, without self-control, boastful, despisers of all that is good, traitors, headstrong and haughty, I mean, this is where we are. Lovers of pleasure, but rather than lovers of God. Having a form of religion, but denying its power. I mean, that's prophetic. We're here now. This is where we are. Raging insanity. Chalepos is the Greek word. Perilous times. Chalepos is the Greek. Thank you, Gary Stearman, for teaching me that. But this is where we are. And for me, you combine everything I just said and jumping from the 60s to where we are now, I wouldn't have believed it. I would just, I'm having trouble believing it. And I've progressed, I've walked through the timeline from the 60s to where we are now. And I look around and I just go, you can't fix this anymore. He's got to come back soon. Because, unless those days were shortened, no flesh would survive. He's got to come back soon. And I believe it's soon. I could be way wrong on this, but I believe it's soon.
Amen to that.
So you answered his question. Jake, do you have any other questions? Real quick.
I think that's all for. I love the fireworks.
That's awesome.
I think it's a great effect.
Well,
thank you for your time.
Yeah, you're always welcome to come back on the show.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Anything you want to promote, just come on. Just let us know.
Just the Roswell film. I mean, again, there's 8 films in our UFO series. I mean, we're the only Christian ministry that really gets into close encounters of the first, second, third kind, the abduction phenomena, crop circles, cattle mutilations, Roswell, and then finally, 9 and 10, which has not been released yet. What is the truth? And we sat down with Nick Pope and Nick Redfern. We got people from both sides of the aisle. Gon Shimura comes on the record. I mean, all these people, what is the truth? We'll release that shortly. It's done, but we're not going to release it till March because we're trying to promote the Roswell field. But, people need to wake up, and we've done the homework. We're out of a library, folks. We're out of a library.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and
thank you, guys.
You're
God
doing a
bless
great
you both.
job on the social media, by the way. Just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Rachel Tolson.
Oh,
she's our social media director.
That's
awesome.
She's
great.
I saw that and I was like, that's great. That's great. He looks so cool. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it.
All right, guys. God bless you. Take care.
You too.